right, it's time for a July wrap up, and this has been one of the best reading months I've had in a while. I don't even know if that's by the numbers. I'm just doing it by feeling. I'm not looking at the average rating. I bet if I look at the average rating though, it's above a 4. Because I had a lot of high highs. I had a lot of okay things too. It's not like it was perfect. But in general, I was really excited and always very motivated, and that's where I like to be. And I think part of it is like at the end of June, I kind of stopped reading because I got a huge book hangover after Speaking Bones, and then I went and traveled for my wedding. And when I came back, I suddenly was like in a reading mood, and I was just picking up all the things. It's been great, and I have a lot of projects I'm excited about. And speaking of projects, there are 2 books that I read this month that I will not talk about here because there's a secret project. And you're going to be hearing that probably a fair bit in some of my Friday reads because I'm going to be reading most of those books in August. But at the end of August, you'll have the video for that. You shall see. And if you are a sleuth, you can probably guess what it might be related to. I'll leave it at that. But we still have 10 books to talk about because, like I said, this was like high quality, high number. It was great. Perfect storm. I was excited to be reading this month. And we're not going to overanalyze it. I did break things into groups because I actually felt like doing that this month. And there are 4 groups. One of them is just miscellaneous. So let's just start there because I couldn't figure out where to fit these books. Kind of starting with a low, Daughter of Dr Moreau. That's the title. This is a Silvia Moreno Garcia. I typically don't always love her works. I think the highest rating I've ever given any of her books is 4 stars, so the fact that this is just fine for me was very predictable. So this is not a reflection on Silvia Moreno Garcia's work, although I do think that this worked more adjacent to the writing style and tone that was in Mexican Gothic, although it's not a Gothic horror at all. But what I like is when she's a little more pulpy, which is like Certain Dark Things. It also reminded me a bit of Gods of Jade and Shadow, which I also was very fine with. I think Gods of Jade and Shadow and this I've both given like 3 stars, where it's like it was short and that's fine, but I was never motivated in the journey of the main character. And like the project of it I have seen explored in science fiction many times, and this wasn't quite a new enough spin when I wasn't connecting to characters to make me invested. And actually when I wasn't connected to characters, I was a little bit, uncomfortable with certain character dynamics that she was choosing to explore. And I thought she chose to do that all tactfully, but there is just like this age gap. It's not a relationship, but like we have 2 characters that are 15 years apart, maybe 20 years apart, and their interactions are odd and uncomfortable, and it is a historical fiction, sci-fi novel-ish, but still like, it was like when I wasn't aggressively neutral, I was a little like, why am I being uncomfortable? And like, I know that's probably the purpose to make me uncomfortable, but it made it hard for me to like a character that I found to be more likable, because you follow 2 perspectives. You follow the major domo and you follow the daughter. And I really liked the major domo except for when he was thinking about the daughter. It was a little weird. The sci-fi stuff, like I said, was fine, and I just do think her writing is only okay for me. Like, I don't just like flow in the prose style that she uses like other people do. So I think this is fine. I read it because I was trying to read some of the novels on the Hugo shortlist that intrigued me, or like I was like, oh, I guess I should read this now because I haven't yet, and this was one of the only ones I can get an audiobook for. So that was a large part of it, and it was the time when I needed an audiobook and I didn't have another one to pull from, and so that's why I kind of kept pushing through. The other miscellaneous book is actually a really strong read. I haven't landed on my rating. By the time I've posted this video, I guess you'll see it. But I started it at the beginning of the month for my local book club, and that was Nightcrawling. This was really good art. I just have no idea if it's like a 4.5 or 5 star. We had a really great discussion about it. It's about this girl, Kiara, and she basically is the breadwinner of her home at 17, but it's also impossible for her to get a job because she's 17, and she lives in, I think it's Oakland, California. And she decides one night after mistakenly having sex with someone after getting drunk and he pays her because that's what he assumed that transaction was. She's like, maybe this is a way to help out, because she's just survival. So this is a story about modern day contemporary survival of a teenager. It is a Gen Z literary fiction written by an author who is Gen Z. Like, the author wrote this when she was 17 and is now 19 or something like that. And I think it is both very harsh but also a very beautiful book, and it shows the moments of lightness in Kiara's life, like the moments that make Kiara want to keep surviving and pushing, even though it also shows the really hard moments. Like I said, I just really liked it. Highly recommend the audiobook because the cadence and the dialect that's in the writing, I think, came through really well that way, and maybe better than if I had read it physically. So yeah, because I mean, the author's also a poet, so you can kind of tell that the cadence and the rhythm of the writing is part of the art. Like, it's definitely that added layer to it. So yeah, I really appreciated it, and I think as much as you can enjoy darkness like this, I liked it because the moments I remember are the bright moments that were highlighted. There's this young boy that she helps take care of, and their moments together are just so bright and hopeful. There are equally moments that I remember that I'm just like, oh, that was a gut punch. But it left an emotional impact, which is like a big thing for me in reading, so definitely hit the mark there. So now we'll get into things that like have categories. This one's called Dragons because I read 2 dragon books. I like never read dragon books, but I read 2 because I've been reading Rainwild, so we'll talk about that first. City of Dragons. This is so aggressively fine. I think the Rainwild Chronicles should have been a trilogy because there's about like 100 pages of repetition in each of the second and third book that obviously could have been condensed into maybe just one larger book or moving. I think there's ways to move things around that this would have been a really, really solid, tight trilogy, and it's just not as tight as I'm used to Robin Hobb being. Like, Robin Hobb is written longer books that are tighter than these, and that's like my biggest complaint, is it's just like, yes, I know brains are repetitive, I know people think in circles like little hamsters, I'm one of them. In terms of art and experiencing it, I don't think we're doing this effectively, and it feels like someone who was told you need to write a 5-page per assignment. And even though 4 pages would have been sufficient to get the content down, because it needs to be 5 pages, you just stretch. That's how this series feels to me. As someone who has written those essays, that's how I feel. Now, that said, it still was exploring some interesting things. I don't know. I'm reading the last book right now, like, already, and I'm like, oh, this is so much better because things are happening. Like, the third book is so filler. It's so fine. And the only reason I think it doesn't get a lower rating for me is that it was a buddy read, and I enjoy buddy reads immensely. And that makes my enjoyment level a bit higher because, you have a good time. Now, that said, Ben and Grace, they both gave it like 4.5 stars. And like, the rest of us were a little confused, but obviously some people can really enjoy this third book. I think the lows were low enough for me that I couldn't really enjoy the highs that happen at the end of the book, because it does like ramp up. I just don't think that the pacing was good enough for me to ignore how aggressively apathetic I was at the beginning, where we once again go through the same thought trees that we've been going through for 2 previous books. All right, the next book is Fourth Wing, which wasn't a surprise success, but I'm really glad it did work for me. I purposely picked it for my long plane rides to and from Colombia for my wedding, and I wanted a page-turner, I wanted brain candy, I wanted something with tropes that I tend to latch onto, and every review I saw made me think that's what this would be, and they were all right. And more, because I was not expecting to like Violet as much as I did. Normally when I read stuff like this, the main character is just kind of there. I mean, that's how I grew up in young adult space, with a very bland main characters, or just aggressively like down on themselves main characters. I don't know, just whatever Feyre is in A Court of Thorns and Roses, that's what I'm used to, and I don't like Feyre. Even if I love A Court of Mist and Fury, I don't love Feyre, like, it's just, that's not why I'm there. And here though, like, if you removed the fantasy romance part of it and just had a story with Violet, I think I would have had fun. Like, just Violet and friends, dragon school. I was enjoying my time with her. I enjoyed my time watching her problem solved. I enjoyed that she was, I like surviving people, and she's a very much like survival. Okay, how do I solve this next problem? Like, it wasn't that deep, but I was rooting for her, and I liked following her, and I liked her standards for herself. I thought she was really good at knowing what she was willing to accept for herself, and that was really great. That said, I also do love the romance components. That was very fun for me. That was exactly what I wanted. You saw all the twists a mile away. Like, this was not original in many regards. But then there were some things that people didn't mention that were related to, like, the dragon stuff. Then I'm like, this is awesome. This is fantastic. So I'm very excited for the second book. That was a blast, and I needed it, because for those of you who don't know, my trips to and from Cartagena were, they were a time. Might have, unfortunately, crossed off the item on a bucket list of sleeping on an airport floor. Don't recommend. But those are my dragon books, and now we'll get into spaceships, because I also read a lot of books with spaceships. We'll start with Dark Age, because that's the one I rated the lowest, although I do like it a smidge more on this read. And actually, I'm early days Lightbringer right now, and I'm really liking Lightbringer, so I feel like Dark Age really just like will be a higher rating for me in hindsight once I see it in its contextual project. But we had a great live show discussion for that will be linked in the playlist down below with all of it, and you can still enter our giveaway before our Lightbringer chat, which will probably be Labor Day weekend. So you have plenty of time to read Lightbringer or whatever you want to read in the Red Rising world to join us. But Dark Age is my least favorite because it focuses a lot on battles I don't care about. I can now really say that that's why, because when we weren't focused on those battles, I was having a great time. Like, Lysander and Darrow chapters, which are the majority of this book, are so boring to me in this book. I'm just like, whatever. And if anything, I don't mind Darrow as much in this as I do Iron Gold. I think Darrow's, like, real weird in Iron Gold, and I don't like it. But here, like, I'm okay with it. It's just that, like, there's a lot that's happening on the planet Mercury, and, like, Mercury did not matter until this part of the series, and I still don't think it matters as much as they think it does, and I think it was all a tactical mistake, and I think I had no buy-in to the stakes of the situation, and I just thought everyone was being really dumb, and I wanted to focus more on what's happening on Mars and the moon, and when we were there, I was very happy. And there were things I forgot. That was the mess part of this reading experience, is how much it was like reading it for the first time. I don't get to reread things like it's for the first time barely ever, and usually my memory will kick in and be like, oh yeah, this thing's coming up. And if it's like a comfort reread, I know the beats down pat, and that's like kind of part of the comfort, right? So this was fun, and I loved the discussion. Excited to continue Lightbringer, because that one's like hit the ground running in some very interesting ways. Like, I really like how it started. And then we have Chaos Vector. So we are actually going to have a live show for the entire trilogy the second weekend of September. So I'm going to be reading Catalyst Gate soon. But I read Chaos Vector last month to get caught up, because I should have read it the month before. But, you know, if you saw the June wrap-up, you know, it was a time. But I finally read this, and it was really fun. This is just like a fun adventure sci-fi time that works really well for me. I'm not a very plot-driven reader, but this series seems to have enough character and world-building weight to it that I'm having a lot of time, like, going along with the plot and seeing the twists and turns and wondering what's going to happen. And there was a character in the first book that I didn't like that much, and had less page time in this book, but I'm now way more invested in their arc, which is very cool. I'm curious to see what happens. There are so many mysteries in this world I want to unpack, and I really like, I think Sanda is her name. It's either Sanda or Sandra. Can't remember. But she's awesome. She falls into the role of competent character that I really love, and I love her no-nonsense attitude. I love how she picks herself up and figures things out, and there are a lot of fun scenes where we get to see her actions through other people's eyes, and I really like how other people view her as a character. Really cool. So this is really fun, and if you want to get in on that and you've been reading the series, come join us in September. Also, just shout out to my patrons. Today's been a day. Today was Take the Cats to the Vet Day, which always is a rough day for me. I mean, it's rough when you have old cats. So really appreciative. I mean, any money that I make from this and my Patreon, I put directly into my pets, because pets bills have gotten absurdly expensive, and I've gone to the vet often this year, and like, once again, everything's increased. And I'm just like, guys, can we just stable prices? Like, I know the economy is doing whatever it's doing, but please. But I'm just very appreciative. Even if you aren't a patron and, you know, you watch the video with the ads or whatever, it all goes to them, and it really helps. We're like a one income household right now, so every little bit is incredibly appreciated. But back to the last spaceship book is Warrior's Apprentice. I did it. And this is all because of Laura in the Discord. Because I was like, we're getting near the end of the month. I'm like, I don't know what else I'm going to be reading. I've been like jumping into all the books. Like, I'm in the middle of like 5 books right now as I'm filming this. It's not healthy. But I was seeing them talk about it, and they were mentioning things like, yeah, I do love that about Bejoled's writing, I do, and I'm missing that, and so I picked it up, and it was great decisions. I do miss Cordelia. Miles is great, but Cordelia, who is in the first 2 books of the Vorkosigan saga, I miss her. But woo boy, the emotional roller coaster you go on in a Vorkosigan saga book is unmatched. Like, you can just go from like, that was so silly and fun, to like, wow, I need tissues in like 2 seconds. And I haven't even read that many pages in this series, so the efficiency of like wringing out emotions from me is really good. I don't think I love this as much as I do Barayar or Shards of Honor, but I really like it. And I'm once again finishing it, want to get to the next book, which hopefully will happen soon, but if you saw my August TBR, no idea when. Who knows, maybe I'll squeeze it in. These are short reads, and I really like them. Like, I love the writing style. It just, like, instantly hooks me into a scene. And, like, what's weird about Warrior Apprentice, which is in theory technically a potential starting point, although I don't think I would have been as emotionally affected if I hadn't read the first 2 books because of an arc of a character that we're introduced to in Shards of Honor. But the plot's weird. And, like, I didn't read the back of the book. I'm just, like, here for the ride. And I'm just, like, what is happening? Because it's a lot of just, like, oh, I guess we're doing this now because Miles made this decision and that's caused this chain of events. And it was just kind of fun going along for the ride, and I was like, where do we end? Because I don't even know where we're starting. And once again, it was like this for the first 2 books, and Verkosugan Saga too. When I got to the end, I understood what we were doing in the middle and, like, the purpose of why is this the window into this character's life that we're stepping into? And so that was cool. Lots of fun world building because I got to explore different corners of the world, had some new characters who, like, I got turned around on because there was one character I met and it's like, I don't really like her. And then by the end, I'm like, nah, she's great. That was a good arc. So I really love this author. Miles should be listed, like, as commonly as, like, Paul or Ender or anything like that. Like, Miles is, like, a space opera king, and I love him. And he's really interesting disability representation, which I don't hear people talk about the Verkosugan Saga that often, but I wasn't prepared for that, and I really liked it. Like, and that's another thing that was in Chaos Vector 2, our main character there also has a disability. And in Fourth Wing, there was a character with a disability. I guess I could have made a category with main characters with disabilities, but my brain went to dragons and spaceships first. Because what was nice about all of this disability representation is it wasn't ignored, but it wasn't like their character trait, you know? Like, it was definitely a thing that they had to work with in their stories, but it wasn't, you know, the defining feature, if you will. So those are my spaceship books, and then we will end this video talking about my comfort reads. 2 of them, unsurprisingly, rereads, and one of them is by one of my most read authors. So we'll start with the one that I think I'm giving the lowest rating to, but I still had a pretty good time with that. And there should be a live show this weekend on this book on Jesse's channel. If I have a link, I'll share it down below, but if not, just keep your eye on community tabs. I think we're discussing it on Sunday around noon Eastern Daylight Time. But this is Yumi and the Night Painter. I think that's the name. And this was really fun. I don't know how much people want to know about this book. I know everyone's very touchy about the secret projects. What I will say is one of the things that I think stops it from being a fave for me is I think with this, I'm really noticing how Sanderson's cultural world building does not reach the levels that I want it to be at compared to other books that I have been reading lately. And, like, part of that is, like, how do you compare anything to the Dandelion Dynasty? But here we are, that's what I've read this year. And I think, you know, it's not bad world building, but it's not great, and especially since this one is inspired directly by, I think, both Japanese and Korean cultures. I think if you're going to do that, you should do a little more homework. Like, I don't think it's done offensively, but I also don't think it's done... Like, I don't think you would notice it, but besides aesthetic qualities, and I think cultures are more than their aesthetic qualities, if that makes sense. But that's just something I like. I don't think it's bad, though, but I do think that's the thing that stops it from being an all-time favorite for me, and obviously, I'm not Asian, so, like, you know, this is not an Own Voices review. This is just, like, how I notice, like, in Wheel of Time, all the cultural world building is a lot about architecture and clothing and, like, surface level, like, ways that people interact with each other and not as internal as I would like it to be. And now that I've read things where I really like the cultural world building, like the Verkosugan Saga and Dandelion Dynasty, it's like, it's easier for me to pinpoint when something is not as deep as I want it to be. And I'm more forgiving if it's just, like, its own world and whatever. And since this is more directly inspired by our world, I'm a little more like, well, it's not quite at the standards I would like it to be. Now, otherwise, it's got a fun narrative device, like plot device. Like, our motivation for the story is really fun. I really like the 2 characters. I don't think I bought into their interactions as much as I wanted to. Like, it's a book about 2 very isolated individuals who only have each other to interact with. And it's about their bond and how it changes and grows. And I don't think I was as invested as that as I have been other Sanderson character interactions, which was kind of surprising. I still really liked it. I just felt like there were moments where I was supposed to feel something, and I didn't. Which is kind of a bummer, but like that said, I really enjoyed learning more about the world. I really liked the narrative device. I thought that it was like a fun time, and it was comfortable for me. Like I read it, and the week I read it, I was having a good time. And like it almost got those like fave feelings for me. Like at one point, like, oh, I'm so happy, because it kind of filled that like I didn't get to read Warbreaker this summer. Like that Warbreaker's like one of my summer reads. Like it filled that a little bit because I kind of had that same level of weight as Warbreaker. So take that as you will. And then the next two are rereads, and both have standalone reviews on my channel, and I don't have new thoughts on them. But we have The Best of All Possible Worlds by Karen Lord. I love this. If you're a patron, you have a spoiler vlog where I basically check in after every 1 or 2 chapters because I'm obsessed with this book, and it's just so comfortable to me, and I just love exploring healing in this way. Like it's light, but it's also, we're exploring people recovering from depression and like, I don't know, generational trauma. It's so good. Like, if you like Becky Chambers, I think you might like this. And if you like the idea of liking Becky Chambers, I think you should try this, because this is more cathartic for me and what I want. Like, if I want a therapy session in a book, this is kind of what I want. It was really good. Like, it kind of reminds me of like the episodic nature of things like Ted Lasso or The Bear, where it's like, yes, there's an overarching arc and a point to the story, but like each episode is just about exploring characters and their interactions and what we're doing that day. And it's like there are like climaxes to each of these chapters in The Best of All Possible World, so it's a little more high stakes than I think A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. There it is. But you know, overall, though, like, the journey is just a year surveying this planet. Like, that's the plot of the story, and it's about this team of people and how they come close together and the issues that they run into, culturally and otherwise. And it's so good. Really love it. Another example of, like, the cultural world building that I adore, like, so much. And then The Mask of Mirrors, which I guess I can say I listened to the audiobook this time because my life was too busy for me to physically read, and then I was getting anxious about things, and so I did the audiobook, and I really do like the narrator. She's not 100% because who can be 100% for all my favorite characters? But I really loved all of her accents, which I think really elevated it for me. I mean, a book I already love, like this is the 3rd time I've read it, and you know, in my head when I first read it, I didn't give people different accents. Like I knew logically, okay, this one's speaking like this one's speaking like this, but I do that all the time when I have accents in books. I just like, I don't have an internal London accent, like I don't have any of these things. So with audiobooks, it is always cool when I get to hear them, and the accents that are used for different regions, oh, it was so cool. I really liked it, so I'm very excited to read the sequel with its audiobook. That should be really fun, and I just love this book, and I love the cultural tensions, and I really enjoy it. I think this first book is just going to always be one of my favorite books of all time. It's just, from chapter 1, I am always hooked right away, and I'm a sucker for a masked vigilante. Like, I love superhero stuff, if you don't know, so the fact that I have this high fantasy book that also kind of has light superhero elements is super fun. It has really cool magic. The tarot deck is going to be on Kickstarter soon, and unless it costs way too much money, I'm backing it, because like I'm not even a tarot card person, but like that in World they have this pattern deck, and it's like I need it. I really need it. I love how it's used in the world. I love how astrology is used. And there are so many things that are so cool on a reread of the first book, because after you read Liar's Knot, a lot of things get contextualized. Because when you read Mask of Mirrors, you're going to be like, I feel like there are loose ends. I don't really understand why XYZ happened. And you're right, you don't. You have to read the Liar's Knot. And I still bet I need to read Labyrinth's Heart to really understand everything. And it's just fun. Because on a surface level, when I read Mask of Mirrors, I didn't even know that I was missing context. Like, I still was kind of like, feels like this might be a plot hole, but like, whatever, I had a great time. And it's like, no, it's not a plot hole. It was intentionally put there. And it's like, cool. That's really cool. So anyways, that's this wrap up. If you can't tell, it was a pretty stellar reading month for me. And like, one of the books that I can't talk to you guys about was also a 5-star. So that was fantastic. Yeah, that book surprised me. But let me know what you've read this past month. What were your hits? What were your misses? If you just want to leave an emoji to let me know you're here, let's do, either a spaceship or a dragon or a mask. You can pick, because I think those are the things I'd like to highlight. And otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.